stand up and cheer them. This is going to go on a long time. So the amount of money being burned will be $100 billion, hundreds of billions of dollars. It all depends. That's the direct outlays. And that's on top of trillions and trillions of dollars that have been spent in Israel's wars. Again, it's not that Israel is the tail wagging the dog. It's rather that the dog and the tail get along right now. The tail is the local hegemon or the regional hegemon, and the dog wants the world. And so they are in partnership on this. But this has been trillions of dollars for nothing except destruction. We could come back to that, but if people are curious, there's something called the Watson Institute at Brown University. You can find it online. They show you the trillions and just how much waste there's been, the loss of lives, the physical destruction, and so on. So the second point, though, is the energy. And I think everybody understands.
And if you can speak also about the energy of Europe.
Well, Europe is an energy importing region. And Europe is you have politicians like van der Leyen and Merz and others who are, let me say, economically suicidal for Europe. They're systematically destroying the European economy. I think they know it, by the way. They don't say it exactly that way, but van der Leyen will go down in history as the one that did the most damage of any European leader, probably in the history of the European Union, of self-destruction. Europe, the European economy not only came to a standstill, it just falls farther and farther behind the United States and China across the whole industrial spectrum, because it's all war and energy shocks and self-denial. So basically, Europe is a fossil fuel importing region, and it had a source of low-cost natural gas from Russia that was a mainstay of the European economy. The United States hated that, by the way, because the United States, Europe's great ally, is nothing of the sort. Sorry to break the news, but the United States has never been interested in Europe's economic well-being. The United States is interested in European dominance. Okay, I'm sorry to be impolite, but this is just the facts of life. So when Europe and Russia made the physical connections of the pipelines, the U.S. absolutely went mad. Nord Stream, are you kidding? This isn't just that it was blown up a few years ago. This was targeted by the United States for 2 decades, threatening Germany. How dare you take low-cost natural gas from Russia? Well, once upon a time, there were actually German chancellors that represented Germany. That hasn't happened in the last 2 chancellors, Scholz and Merz. But before that, there was Kohl, there was Merkel, there was Schroeder before that. They understood that economically, a connection between Germany and Russia was, hey, mutually beneficial. That's how trade works. And then the U.S. and Europe, with its 20th round of sanctions, which is 20 rounds of economic self-destruction of Europe, cut itself off from from low-cost Russian gas, which was the bulwark of the German industry. And German industry also is Austrian industry, it's Slovak industry, it's Hungary's industry, it's Slovenia's industry, it's Czech Republic's industry, it's Poland's industry. In other words, it's the industrial heart of Europe that then radiates as other suppliers provide components to this German industry. Well, that's basically dead right now. It's dying. The only thing alive in German industry are investments in China. which is fine. But it would be nice if German industry in Germany were still functioning, but it isn't, because in this craziness that we have, Europe signed up to 20 rounds of self-denial, and the United States said, that's fine, we'll provide you liquefied natural gas at 6 times the cost. That'll be wonderful. Okay, so that's part of the US ploy all along. Europe is incredibly gullible on this. The United States does not want Europe to develop. It really doesn't. It doesn't want European champions in artificial intelligence. It doesn't want European champions in electric vehicles. It doesn't want European champions in robotics. It doesn't want European champions, period. Any good European company, it wants to take for itself, like the Dutch company ASML, which is the world's best producer of advanced microchips. It's basically a U.S. company because the U.S. bosses the company around. European Union doesn't say, we decide who we sell to. No, we let the United States decide, because they love us. They have us in their dreams. So this is the starting point. Now comes the next crisis. This is an even bigger energy crisis than the cutoff of Nord Stream. This one involves the center of world hydrocarbons, which of course is West Asia. It is the Persian Gulf region. It's Iran, Iraq, all the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council states that are being bombed these days, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, the Saudis, and so forth. So that's a huge amount of the world's energy supply. And I think everyone has heard 100 times in the last week that roughly 20% of the world's hydrocarbons flow through this narrow passageway called the Strait of Hormuz, which is basically under the effective shelling of Iran. So the traffic of both petroleum and natural gas has stopped out of the Persian Gulf region. And that's a lot. So we see oil and natural gas prices soaring right now. But we're not anywhere close to the limit of that. Of course, the next weeks will depend on what happens in the air and in the battlefield. But if the war continues, as looks likely, oil prices will surely rise well above $100 a barrel, well above 100 euros a barrel. Natural gas prices will continue to soar. And the effects of this on the population living standards in Europe will be very, very tough for 2 reasons. One, the out-of-pocket outlays will soar for diesel, for the car, or for electricity, which is absolutely going to spike yet again, as it has in the past few years. And second, there's going to be a lot of closure of industry. So a lot of companies will close down because they're no longer profitable at these high energy costs. So that will either force directly concessions on wages or layoffs. We've been through this before. We had oil shocks in the past, especially most dramatically in the 1970s, both in 1973-74 at the time of the Israel war, the so-called Yom Kippur War with Egypt and other Arab countries, and then again in 1979-80 around the upheavals in Iran. So we've been through that. I actually know something about it. Not only am I that old, but I wrote my PhD dissertation in 1980 on these oil shocks, on how to analyze them, how to study them in an economic model, why they have such adverse effects. And I published a book in 1982 called The Economics of Worldwide Stagflation, which was one of the results of that research. So I've studied this for more than 45 years, and I can tell you, if this war continues this way, if Donald Trump, in his delusional reveries, says unconditional surrender, I choose the next supreme leader, and so on, and the war continues, as it is likely to do, the economic consequences in Europe and in the world in the next 12 months will be extraordinarily stark.
In the next 12 months, do you think, or it will be longer?
No, I'm saying that during the next, it won't wait for a year or two or three. During this coming year, I mean, this will really, really, really hurt.
Meaning, what means really, really, really hurt?
Of course, again, it depends on the battlefield, but if the Straits of Hormuz are closed for the next few weeks, which is definitely a real possibility, not only will oil and gas prices soar, but production of oil and gas throughout the Middle East will stop. This is already happening for two reasons. One, if you can't pump what you're producing, you can't produce more, so you have to shut down the fields. And second, Iran has been hitting the physical infrastructure of the energy sector, and that means that refineries and production sites and port facilities have been blasted in the last few days. So both of these factors, in addition to the shipping lane in the Strait of Hormuz being closed, means that we could see oil prices $125, $150 a barrel, comparable increases in the price of natural gas. And
so that will mean another economic crisis for the world, right?
Yes, and for Europe on top of an ongoing economic crisis.
Okay, I want to hear your estimations about these wars that are happening in Iran and in Ukraine. What does it mean now that we have two battlefields? But first, I want to hear your response. How do you assess the response that Europe had to this war in Iran?
Weird. I don't know if European leaders can say anything truthful anymore. You never hear it. You never hear a straightforward statement from Merz or Macron or Starmer. Europe doesn't need to own Starmer, but from Rutte. Well, there's one European leader who's been brilliant, Pedro Sanchez. Brilliant. You know why? He's speaking the truth. And when Trump threatens him, he says, don't threaten me. I'm going to tell the truth. So one leader has stood up and shown how it can be done. But the rest, oh my God, you can't even imagine how absurd these people are. And I watched it last Sunday at the UN Security Council.
Yes, please tell us your experience and explain to the people, because there is some clips that are going viral about this.
Yeah. So it was a sad day for the UN and a sad day for the world and a sad day for Europe and a sad day for Israel and a sad day for the United States. All of it, and of course, a tragic day for Iran. This was the emergency UN Security Council session that came just after Israel and the United States attacked Iran. So I got a call early in the day. A number of delegations asked me to testify about the consequences, the way out, what the Security Council might do, partly because I had sent a letter to all of the UN Security Council members on February 16th to say that we're at the verge of the collapse of the UN Security Council because the United States is ripping up the UN Charter. So I sent a letter then. Following that, a number of delegations wanted to hear me. Well, Britain was in the chair, and the British said, no, we don't want to hear Mr. Sachs. And the Americans, no doubt, did somersaults to prevent Mr. Sachs from speaking, if I could guess what they were saying about me. But in any event, I went and sat through the session, having had the invitation revoked in that way by the US and UK, but I went to meet and listen. And it was really a ghastly affair because every European country, starting with France, including Britain, including Denmark, including Greece, they all landed on Iran for having the bad manners to be bombed by the US and Israel. So they all said, Iran, what an evil country, what a terrible country. It has to show restraint. It has to stop its response, which, by the way, under the UN Charter is allowed under Article 51. It's called self-defense. If you're attacked, you can strike back, but not in the European eyes that day. So each European country, I think maybe literally, although I don't want to say that I'm absolutely being precise for every European speaker, but I'm being close and pretty accurate in spirit. None of them mentioned that Iran was bombed. That's the point. None of them said, oh, the US and Israel bombed Iran, which I thought was a salient point for that day. You have two countries led by megalomaniacs out to destroy another country. You might think the UN Security Council members would take note of that, but not the Europeans. The Europeans wanted to show that they're good vassal states of the US, and so they all came down on Iran. And it was really surrealistic, even to the point of saying, well, the U.S. and Israel bombed Iran, but you have to understand Iran was a bad actor. They don't even reach that level of normalcy. So they just start with Iran is bombing the Gulf countries. The country of Bahrain, which is a little protectorate of the United States, where the U.S. naval base is in the region, opened up by saying, we've been attacked in an unprovoked attack by Iran. Come on, at least say we've been attacked by Iran after Iran was attacked by the U.S. and Israel, and maybe it's not fair that they attacked us, or maybe saying we're unlucky because the U.S. and Israel let loose murderous firepower, and Iran responded by attacking the U.S. naval base, and that hurts us. Okay, that would be grown up, intelligent, rational, honest. But that's not what was said. What was said was Iran attacked us in an unprovoked way. So you just sit there and you say, George Orwell, you're being outdone. You guided us to how this works, but honestly, they're going beyond what you could have imagined.
So why do you think this is happening? Because everyone is afraid of the United States, and why they respond like this?
I don't know. There's nothing to be afraid of, by the way. This is a bully. Pedro Sanchez said, no, What's going to happen? Really? The United States is going to go to war with Spain? No. The United States is going to cut off trade with Spain? No. This is a bully. But Europe is incapable of honesty right now. They're so traumatized by everything, by their own fears, by their own incapacities, that they can't speak honestly right now. And they've been so trained by the U.S., never object to the U.S. Can you imagine Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, actually saying something that isn't just licking the boots of the U.S.? I can't. I've never heard it. By the way, interestingly, I was friendly with Jens Stoltenberg. I like him. He was finance minister of Norway, then prime minister, then secretary general of NATO. And I was very unhappy when he was secretary general because he was like Rutte. Every word, how fabulous the United States is, how wonderful, no truth at all about any background to the Ukraine war, nothing. Then he ended his term, and the next week, Phidias, he actually said something honest about how the war started and about NATO enlargement being so dangerous and so forth. The next week. So I spoke to a European head of state. I said, God, we didn't hear a word about that when he was Secretary General. And the person said to me, Jeff, when he was Secretary General, who was he working for? And I said, well, he's Secretary General of NATO. He said, yeah, no, who was he working for? I said, the United States. He said, yes. Now he's not working for the United States. Well, is van der Leyen working for the United States or for Europe? I don't know. Is Merz working for the United States or for Europe? I don't know. I don't know, because I don't see anything that is evidently European. So this is why we don't.
A personal question about
Sure.
that whole experience, because you are from the United States, and this was the other countries asking you to speak there. How did you feel personally there in the whole, and with the emotions of the war and all this stuff? How was like you were going in bed the night and what you've been thinking and all this stuff?
I'm extraordinarily worried about what the United States does to the world. And that's what I've been saying for many, many years, that the United States is extremely dangerous. It is hyper-militarized. It has hegemonic aspirations that are delusional, that are absolutely leading us to endless wars, and that we're at the brink of nuclear war. So I've been saying that for many, 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 many years. I've also been saying how dangerous Israel is. And so this is not something new for me. This is just an ongoing grim sense that I have that we are just moving relentlessly to World War III without grown-up voices in Europe saying, hey, slow down, buddy. Don't say you're going to pick the new supreme leader of Iran. Don't say unconditional surrender. Slow down, man, because this isn't going to take us anywhere safe. But that's what I'm missing. By the way, just to bring that day to, that sad day to a conclusion, the U.S., I'll put it aside because it's just, in my opinion, thuggish in its view of everything. Israel spoke also, the perpetrator of this war, the one that's going to bring down the world economy. And it had, the ambassador had two points to make. One he quoted from the Jewish Bible, the book of Esther, about some events in Persia 2,500 years ago, and how the Jews were threatened, and how you strike back preemptively and so forth. And this is part of the current reality, as if this is the immediate text and the immediate context. And the second thing the ambassador said was that he was recently at Auschwitz and the Holocaust, and that's never going to happen again, and so forth. And the truth is, those are the two ideas that motivate this extraordinary militaristic extremism in Israel.